Okay, so here we are. I think this room is so big that people should come, closer. Just if you feel like it, it will be great for you to come closer. We have an interesting topic, which with the leading members of companies and countries, representatives of Latin America, which now holds the biggest nature capacity, if we want to call it that way, for market development and for us to actually do the transition that we are mandated to do. So I'm gonna mention real quick a little bit of them. And we have Camilo online from AETA. So I will also tell you a little more about him. So here we have Pablo from Argentina. He is from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Public Services in Cordoba. Argentina is a country that has states as well, right? Federal states?
Provinces.
Oh, provinces.
Yes.
But
Level.
But autonomous.
Yes, absolutely.
So he's been leading the development over there. Cordoba is famous for its transition, and they established the first experience from the public sector in Argentina. They also developed adaptation protocol with the Climate Action Reserve, and have a strategy on international markets for Cordoba. I think it's also important to mention that they have been working on bioenergy, biofuels, and circular economy. As you might notice, our mother language is Spanish, so that's why I have an accent. So bear with us if there's words that come, in and out, because sometimes I'm thinking in Spanish and then I speak English and it gets twisted, so just in case. We also have here my dear Ana from Panama. Ana represents the Ministry of Environment of Panama, which is very fond of mine because I was the government before. And Ana has been leading all the Article 6 agenda, the markets agenda, and the projects development agenda, which also comes with the memorandum of understanding that the country has with different standards. So as you can see, I didn't need to read about Ana because I'm a fan of what they've been doing in Panama. Panama has been leading the climate agenda for a while now, not only with all this development I mentioned before, but also in terms of international negotiations and leading Latin America on how to go from the UN process to the actual action. So yeah, Ana. We also have here another dear friend of mine, Jose, from CO2 Zero. He's been leading action on forestry projects, and that's why I mentioned nature at the beginning. So Jose is the CEO of CO2 Zero, a project developer on forestry issues, forestry protection, and forests are very special to me. So I'm very happy that he's going to share more of his experience and how Colombia, that is probably the country with the most robust infrastructure for project development, has been advancing. Colombia has a lot of policies, a lot of associations, the standards, the registries, and it's a country that has been setting a precedent for a while now. And then we have Camilo, that is actually from Colombia as well. Camilo is the leader for AETA in Latin America. a new asset that AITA has, and has been leading the way in which countries have this conversation from the private sector perspective with members of the association. And as Katie explained in the previous panel, making positions, business review on how compliant market laws, decrees, and everything in between, can be of use for us to have a robust scheme when it comes to markets. So very happy to be here with them. And without further presentations, I'm going to start with we would like to do this interactive, so we will try to have time for you to interact with them. But I'm going to start with Camilo, if it's okay for you, given that he's online, and that way we can start engaging with him. So I saw the other day on LinkedIn that you led a meeting in Venezuela, which was really interesting for me when it comes, to a petrol country and Latin American country that has been very controversial. But having that over there, it was amazing. So starting from that, like, what is the Latin American carbon market landscape, and what do you think we should expect throughout 2024?
Well, thank you very much, Nathalie, and it's a real pleasure to be in this panel. Unfortunately, I couldn't do to be in San Francisco with you. But yes, I will start by saying that 2023 was an active year, and we expect 2024 to be an even more active year. It's important to note also for the public that Latin America and the Caribbean is the second largest provider of carbon credits after Asia, with around 23% of the share of market. And this is almost a quarter of global supply, though. So this is no a minor detail. For example, in Article 6, we already have 8 countries with certain type of agreement. It's also a signal. And I will try to go through each of the main countries. So, for example, in the Chilean case, I think this was like a special case last year because they published regulation to allow the use of offsets to be used against the carbon tax. Now we have this mechanism operational. They already organized the platforms to make it possible regarding the accountability of this kind of offsets and the carbon tax that they operate there. And companies are right now preparing and working to develop projects in Chile to satisfy this market. So of course we are still trying to understand the details of how this work. Indeed, for example, we still have some regulation that still needs to be released. But I'm sure that we are advancing well in Chile. And for example, and this is like fresh news, hopefully Chile will open a public consultation specifically for the Article 6 framework soon, probably in the next month or even weeks, and they are also working on the design of the ETS. So this is a little bit how Chile looks like. Of course, we have Brazil. The Congress approved the Brazilian cap and trade last year, just the last days of December. We still have some uncertainty about how this will work with the BCM. So there are like still key discussions right now. And of course, we are working from AITA to have a position to support the government and to help shape the system, the emission trading system in Brazil. Regarding Colombia, I think Jose will focus on Colombia a little bit. Just to mention that the internal market have been affected by the limit of 50% imposed by the government last year. This in terms of the percentage of credits that can be used for the carbon tax. But also we have two news here. Is about the publication of regulation for public consultation on the ETS. So we already know Colombia has an ETS like a mandate on the law on climate change. But now, and finally, after some years later, Apparently, they will publish regulation on the design of this ETS, and also a framework decree on carbon markets with some general guidelines. They call it general framework decree because they want like to organize the house after this implementation of the carbon markets in Colombia. So they trying to assess what's going on, what's happening at this time. So they want to create this framework decree. And also we foresee them looking on safeguards and benefit sharing. I think this is a hot topic in the region. Something probably we'll have chance to talk a little bit more later. And just probably passing a little bit quickly on Peru, they are also working on nesting regulation. We are also expecting having this regulation soon. And obviously will be very important for the development of red projects and jurisdictional projects there. And that's related to Peru, related to Mexico, for example. Three weeks ago, more or less 2 weeks ago, we were working in AIRA in a task force because Semarnat also is advancing on a BCM regulation proposal covering from the National Registry for Mitigation Activities, safeguards, benefit sharing. For example, even they are talking about requesting some information on prices, contracts, methodologies to be approved, etc. So I think what I'm telling you with all this progress in all these countries is that we have a lot of activity regarding not only to the implementation of new carbon pricing instruments, but to trying to organize the development of projects. So obviously we need to be very close to the governments, helping them. But in Mexico, I would say that the more interesting thing is the active role that subnational states are having. And it's impressive what the progress that those states are having. For example, Guanajuato, Querétaro, Tamaulipas is a new one with the carbon tax and with an offsetting mechanism to be to be implemented this year. And I think that's the same case for Brazil, not related to carbon taxes, but related to subnational states working, for example, on jurisdictional projects and
I will
red plus
have to
projects, of course.
I will have to interrupt you because we have to do use of our time. But I will come back to you in a little bit. But since you were finishing on a subnational government, and we have Pablo over here, I think it will be interesting to jump into Argentina, and then we take over the conversation with Camilo and all these developments that Ayeta have been putting together so well for us to understand what is happening in the whole, Americas. And Pablo, so what are, the opportunities and challenges that Cordoba and Argentina have been, having, and from your perspective will have, and like in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term, to actually take this starting role to actually lead, having the opportunity of developing subnational link to the market. And to do better use of the time, try to stay within 5 minutes, and then we manage better the exchange, okay?
Okay, good morning. Let me begin by giving thanks to the organization for the invitation, to the audience for coming here to listen to us and the other panelists. It's a true pleasure to be here. Camilo, next time maybe we will meet also in person. To give some initial context, probably the answer is so broad that it's going to be split in this first part and then a second part to be respectful of the time. But Cordoba, as you said, is a province. Is located in the central region of Argentina. It has the largest population and economy after Buenos Aires. Okay. Its main sectors activities are agriculture, industry, and tourism. And it has a very good track record in its commitment with climate action. But we do have the conviction that we can increase our efforts, do more with concrete policies, and and become a leader in the region, as you just said. With that in mind, in 2022, we launched what was the first government policy in Argentina related to carbon markets, which consisted in an auction of carbon credits that started as a pilot but rapidly became a success that far exceeded our expectations. It was a better and bigger receptivity that we expected, and that not only helped us increase awareness about the subject and learn a lot about carbon instruments and carbon markets, but also to connect with key players in the sector, as Mexico too, and Climate Action Reserve. We started having conversations with them to explore opportunities, and from those conversations, we finally could announce last year in Argentina Carbon Forum that we were going to adapt the livestock protocol from CAR first, and second, the landfill protocol. Those conversations started with a preliminary work, and then 2 weeks ago, we announced, we launched the official kickoff for the formal process, which we expect to be done in October this year. Now, the interesting part was that during this period, Argentina had national elections, and we changed government. And to be honest, it has been political turmoil since, but luckily, Córdoba, although it spearheaded the initiative and created the momentum, had the caution of communicating in a clear and transparent way with the national authorities, both the previous administration and the current one. So they know what we're trying to do, their support, and understand the opportunity that this could be for Argentina, a country that has around at least more than 100,000 livestock farms, and less than 1% of those have biodigesters. So the potential is truly big. And then just summing up this first answer, we also are, as I said, working with a team, a great team of Mexico too. They are giving us technical assistance, exploring other opportunities. As you said, we are strong advocates of biofuels. So we are seeing with interest programs like RenovaBio in Brazil. And also we are interested in creating a great team and the knowledge base and the capacity building for maybe sometime in the future take the courage to go for a cap and trade program, which we know is also something that at the national level is also being considered. So big things could be on the horizon in the short term in Argentina. Thank you for your question.
Excellent, excellent. I think Argentina can play a big role, especially, you know, with the whole agriculture framework. Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy that we are here and we can learn more. Also, it's my favorite country, so, you know, I'm looking forward to go soon. Oh, and you're gonna have the Carbon Forum over there as well.
You will have an opportunity to visit us.
Right? No, I won't be able to go, but
okay.
Mexico 2, or Mexico CO2, as I say, is hosting the Argentina Carbon Forum in June. So have that in mind, because there's gonna be a lot going on over there. So I was going to ask Ana, but I will leave that to the end, right? Because you are the national government representative. So I will go to Jose, specifically on the fact that we mentioned that Colombia has been leading with the whole regulation and everything, and from the project developer perspective, specifically in something that it's actually tangible as the carbon stock in the forest, right? How do you feel the regulations have been impacting the BCM, the regulations from the government, the change of government, in Colombia, and how the tax reform of last year has been affecting the demand for credits and the whole ecosystem in Colombia from, you know, the forestry project's perspective.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Nathalie, and thank you to the Reserve for organizing this conference and the event, for the invitation. And well, that's very interesting question. The carbon marketing in Colombia was born like in 2018, mainly with the carbon tax. Like before, I mean, we have been developing project since 2014. But in that moment, it was really hard to sell credits. I was actually selling credits to my family to offset their carbon footprint, but then because the companies, they didn't get any benefit, yeah, like economical benefit, and it was very hard to sell credits to them. And in 2017, the carbon tax was implemented, and in 2018, it was possible to offset the emissions from the carbon tax, so you didn't have to pay the tax. That's the no causation, no causation of the carbon tax in Colombia. And then the companies were calling us, like, okay, do you have carbon credits for the carbon tax? So then we started like selling like a lot of credits for the carbon tax, and that was very good for also the reforesters that they had another income to maintain the plantations, to increase the forest and activities. It went very well at the beginning. The first year, I remember, we were able to offset emissions with international credits. So many traders were selling credits from outside Colombia, and then they regulated this to only offset credits with local projects, which was very good because then, especially for reforestation projects, small landowners, it was a good benefit. In Colombia, it's quite tough for forestry projects as well as in Latin America. We don't have the infrastructure to take out the timber, or it's quite expensive. So this was like a very good help to these projects, and we started doing very good. We also started developing even Red Plus projects. The communities were very involved, and they were finally, after hundreds of years of letting them a little bit out of the map, let's say, because that's what's happened in Colombia and many places in Latin America, like Afro-Colombian or Afro communities, indigenous communities, they are like left there and nobody cares about them. And now with these projects, they have the opportunity to get their own resources, to get money to spend and have more like a sustainable development. Yeah, the problem of the market, I think, is like we're expecting the communities to invest as they had like a MBA in the best universities when they were like always forgotten. So they have to learn as well, like how to invest, how to execute all this money. But it's a process, and I think it's a very good process and how we have been doing it in the country. And the last year there was a tax reform at the beginning of last year, and they limited the no causation of the tax to 50%. And so the demand of credits diminished by 50%, by half, and there were more projects emitted, more credits emitted. So the price went down very dramatically, and we have been listening to complaints from the reforesters, from the communities, like what's happening. We were, I mean, since 2018, like getting some incomes to have more sustainable development, to do activities for the forest, for the communities, and right now we're like stuck. So it has a very big impact, these legislations, and it's something that shouldn't be, I mean, there's an association in Colombia, Asocarbono, which is the association of the carbon actors, which has been very open to talk with the government, to have tables where you can have conversations and discuss how these impacts, these legislations impact the market and the communities at the end. Because if the communities don't have resources, they will continue deforesting or they won't plant more trees. And that's something that we need. The planet needs it. So, yeah, legislation has a very big impact on the market.
Okay, good. Yeah, there's a lot of things I want to say, but I will stay in my moderator role. So, but thank you for explaining that to us. And as Camilo well mentioned, and when talking about each country and how things were happening at different levels, then I will go to Ana, and I want to know from this huge overview that as a government representative, like you have. You go to the negotiations of the UN climate change, but then you have to create policy in your country, and then you have to implement, you have to regulate the private sector, you have to work with everyone. So in the context of the emergence of new market mechanism, both regulated and voluntary, at the international level, but also national level, how does Panama intend to address the existence of these markets? And from your perspective, maybe as a professional, of these issues, especially making policy, right? Does it take any type of leakage, and how do you plan to overcome that as a country?
Thank you, Nathalie, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you for the question. It's a lot. What is happening is a lot. We have a lot of mechanisms happening at the same time, getting implemented at the same time. And as a government, people are coming to the ministry asking about those mechanisms, and we don't have all the answers yet. So what we are planning to do is go step by step. We are starting to create a national registry. The idea with this registry is that we can gather project information. It doesn't matter if the project is being developed for participating in the international voluntary carbon market, or if the project has intentions of participating of Article 6.2, 6.4, or if the project wants to work inside the country in the domestic mechanism. The idea is that we gather that information and know what is happening in the country. And also we are trying to get that measurement, reporting, and verification of the mitigation action that is been taking place in Panama. So our idea is to have this national transparency platform. In that national transparency platform, we're going to have a couple of modules for different initiatives related to mitigation. The registry, the National Registry for Carbon Projects, is going to be there in the National Transparency Platform, but we also will have a module for the linkage with the NDC commitments. So the idea with this registry is that if we have projects that are going to go to the domestic market, those projects, those sectoral projects, could also help to meet some commitments that we included in our NDC. So there is the first linkage. We do want, for the action that is taking place inside our market, help the country to achieve those commitments. We of course, are working with the Article 6 in our NDC from 2016 and also in our NDC from 2020. The country confirmed its intention of participating in both mechanisms, 6.2 and 6.4. And as you know, both mechanisms are very related to the commitments included in the NDC. So this linkage will help us to determine those participation rules, which activities we're going to prioritize to go to the Article 6.4, which activities can participate in 6.2 and exchange with other countries to them to meet their targets. So we are hoping that this registry will help us to map everything and get some rules in there so we can have more clarity. For now, regarding Article 6, the country is getting ready. We are trying to get those participation requirements ready. And we are creating some capacity in our own team. We are having training sessions with the RCC, the Regional Collaboration Center. So we have a team focal point ready to attack those mechanisms when the UNFCCC is ready. We have people to follow up that issue. And talking a little bit more about the VCM, the voluntary carbon market, we think that it's very important for us to link also to the voluntary carbon market. Actually, the way in how the market is going to work, we are working with actors, with relevant actors from the voluntary carbon market. We are relying on the expertise of some registries as Climate Action Reserve, but also we are working with Gold Standard, Verra, and we are relying on those methodologies. So if anybody wants to participate in our domestic market, they will have to go through the whole certification process with Climate Action Reserve, Gold Standard, or Verra, and use their methodologies. With CAR, we have been working in a Panama Forest protocol, so the idea is with this new protocol adapted to national circumstances, we're going to have new projects intended to participate in the domestic market. So in summary, we do believe that we have to create some kind of linkage because at the end we are trying to achieve the same thing. So we need to have some order and some clarity, some rules of participation, so we are clear those activities in the country, where are they supposed to participate in? Voluntary carbon market, Article 6 mechanisms, other markets, or in the domestic market.
Thank you very much, Ana. As I said before, Panama is always set to lead by example. And it's really interesting to know the infrastructure also with the whole forestry coverage, the biodiversity that you have over there, and that specific location with the Panama Canal and all the things around that. So before we do another round of questions, I would like to open the floor to participants that would like to make some questions to our panelists. So we're gonna do this differently, because if not, we're gonna keep talking to each other, and we are going to run out of time as usual. So if somebody wants to make a question, this is your moment. So you can raise your hands, and our colleagues from CAR over here will walk to you to hand the mic.
Hello, thank you very much for those remarks. My name is Alex Hanafi. I'm with Pollination, and I just wanted to pick up on the last point that you were making about Article 6 and readiness for Article 6, to ask you and maybe your fellow panelists kind of what, when you think about Article 6 and implementation of Article 6, what is it that keeps you up at night about getting ready for that? Are there key challenges that you're kind of most focused on right now, whether it's on the capacity building side or kind of the economic analysis side or legal preparations, or what are the things that kind of you feel are really top of mind to get ready for Article 6 cooperation? Thanks.
Is that for Ana, correct? Okay.
Yeah, and others have.
Thank you for the question. It's a very good question. I think we have a lot of challenges. All of those that you mentioned are currently challenges for us. But I would like to mention we have two NDCs presented, one in 2016 and another in 2020. And the thing with our NDCs is that the commitments are very qualitative commitments. So we don't have quantitative targets. We don't know what exactly is our target. So when we started talking about Article 6, you need to have those targets ready, and you need to draw that line. Till here, you need to compensate in your own country. You need to fulfill your targets first, and then you can go outside and sell the rest. But we are not sure what is the rest, because we don't have that data yet. We are missing data. We are kind of behind in terms of information, technical information, so we can build quantitative targets for our country. So that, I would say, is our first challenge, because people is asking right now, can I sell this through Article 6.2? And my answer is, I'm not sure, because I don't know what is the target in that sector. So that's our first challenge, but also capacity building. Article 6 is complex. We haven't even figured out The UNFCCC haven't even figured out the whole thing. So we do need capacity building. We are trying to stay on track, having these meetings with the RCC. But yes, we do need also a lot of capacity building. So those two things are the main priorities right now.
Yeah, I can add something as well. So, for example, I'm from the Dominican Republic, and I'm former climate change director. And when I was in the government administration, we managed to sign two bilateral agreements, one with Sweden and another one with Singapore. And probably the biggest challenge right now is for both countries to figure out how they are going to operate the transaction in between each other and how projects are going to be developed. So our stakeholder, and by our I mean the country, in Sweden was the Swedish Energy Agency. That means that the priorities of the Swedish bilateral agreement is focused on energy projects. And we have representative over here from the Ministry of Energy of the Dominican Republic that you can later engage with them, because they are also implementing the pilot project that President Biden and John Kerry put together for 3 countries to work on a voluntary approach as well. So the challenge in general is to set up this thing, because countries do not have figured out how to actually implement that, even when they are engaging with these agreements. And that's for Article 6.2, which is the part of the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement that it's going to be operationalized faster. So I think countries need a lot of help in putting together the whole scheme, and people helping the countries to put that together should look into that, come in with ideas, with views on how this can be operationalized. Of course, looking into NDCs is also key, because to do corresponding adjustment, you need to understand what's the strategy of this decarbonization of the country, and that's the NDC. And now that's going to change, because countries need to present new NDCs to the convention. So have all of that in mind when you see these bilateral agreements, because I think from the UN climate change perspective in the negotiations, it's the most challenging, go to that level of implementation. Any other question from the floor?
Good morning. Jorge Calderon, the Air Lab from Mexico, a project developer. I have 2 questions, one for Ana and one for Jose. For Ana is that, as I understand, you already have pretty much progress on a protocol with CAR for Panama. And my question is, are you holding this part of the BCM to start developing projects until you have your regulatory system in place? Is it dependent one on another, or are you liberating project development in the voluntary carbon market? That would be my question for Ana. And later on, for Jose from Colombia, I know that Colombia has been advancing a lot in different areas, and just a question that nobody has mentioned here, but I have heard Colombia is already meeting and certifying biodiversity credits. So if you have any comment on that, I will appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's start with Jose and then Ana.
Okay. Well, yes, the biodiversity credits. I know that with, for example, biocarbon registry has developed a methodology in order to get biodiversity credits. But to be honest, I'm not very familiarized with it. I know that it's like how much biodiversity can be gained in a certain area, but there are different aspects and factors. It's not as easy as as carbon, because a ton of carbon is a ton of carbon here or in Colombia or in Singapore. Biodiversity is a little bit more complex. if we want to gain biodiversity, we have to take into account different factors, like, I don't know, like there are some alphas and betas, and I'm not a biologist, but I've talked with some biologists, and it's not as easy as to count the animals or to do like some kind of with camera traps monitoring. It's much more complex, and I think it's a challenge, but it's under construction, and it's also interesting what is going to happen in the COP in Colombia, the biodiversity COP, which is going to take place in, I think it's October?
Yes, in Cali,
October,
right?
in Cali, yeah. So I think these discussions are going to be very interesting in that space in Cali.
I could probably add a little bit on that. We have other standards with, our certification programs with the standards on biodiversity. Ser Carbono, also Plan Vivo is also working on that. There is one that is led by Terrazos. And Terrazos probably is the more known organization with biodiversity credits in the market. So yes, there is some progress on that. We foresee more progress on this also.
Yeah, I was going to say that part of Colombia's great development is that they have, the association, but you also have registries, and you also have standards, and some of those standards are already looking into biodiversity credits. So it's really interesting. So before we go to Ana, I like to make a question to Pablo, and then we do another roundup because we are 18 minutes away from finishing, and I don't want to lose the momentum as well. But Cordoba being working at subnational level as we mentioned before, and looking into the challenges and the change of government and everything in between, how do you foresee, climate action in general in the country from both perspectives? Because you already told us of how you advanced at your province, autonomous province level, but how's the perspective to actually be able to implement climate action from the whole country perspective?
Okay.
Argentina leads in many things that we mentioned: agriculture, energy, forestry, a lot of natural resources, and then how you look that into the whole climate action network, if we want to call it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Some other regions, Argentina right now, if I will tell you what are some of the main obstacles to advance climate action, is an indirect effect of other sector, which is macroeconomics. We have a crisis. I think it's very well established that we are in a very delicate moment in the economy of Argentina. And as I mentioned before, it also that also comes with some political turbulence. But I'm optimistic and hopeful that sooner or later we will get through that. And when that happens, because part of the problem of that is that takes a lot of focus of other things sometimes, because you have a fire that to stop. And but as I said, after taking that aside, I think that Cordoba experience shows, as others like California have demonstrated before, that subnational states can catalyze action. But I do believe that we have to align with the national efforts as well for maximum impact. So a well-coordinated effort and clear rules, clear regulation, a common framework, I think that's one of the strategic steps that we should take as a country. in addition to the subnational efforts. That's one thing, and I'm optimistic that we can do that. Also, as I said in a previous panel, we don't have to lose in mind that this is a market. So I think what we have to do is compete and create a great product. And part of that means credibility, creating an exciting ecosystem where every stakeholder knows its role. And I think the government in that part has to first support with methodologies that are robust and transparent. I think we are doing a very great first step with the adaptation of climate action reserve protocols. But then we can also support the efforts with incentives and unlocking finance, because we have co-benefits. Like, for example, in the landfill protocol, when we are reducing methane, we're also improving the air quality. We are also potentially creating a new renewable energy. We are also improving waste management practices. So there is reason to synergize the carbon market policy with other policies. And lastly, and with this I end this part, is we do need to extend and amplify our connections with the world. I think Argentina is, in that sense, is trying to reinsert itself in the conversation. And I'm happy that, for example, we are doing these steps with an institution like CAR, like Mexico too, and recently we heard about the effort that Chair Leon Randolph is championing about a subnational methane action coalition. We are eager to participate in that as well and exchange knowledge and best practices and leverage their expertise so we can accelerate and have a fast track way to get to our goals in climate action.
Excellent. And Argentina was also part of the board of the Green Climate Fund, which is also a step, of coming back as the country supposed to come. So here it says 13 minutes, but my watch says 10 minutes. So as a final roundup, your question, Anna is going to answer it in 2.5 minutes. Okay? So go ahead.
Yes. We have developed a Panama Forest Protocol with Climate Action Reserve. Is already online, is ready to use, and we are expecting new projects with this protocol. We as a government are not intending to control the projects. We are not saying no to the voluntary carbon market, but for now we are working just with private lands in that protocol. Because in Panama we have a forestry law that complicates everything a little bit regarding the carbon ownership and the land ownership. So we need to figure out how we're going to approach state lands, comarca lands. Comarca is the territories where our indigenous people live. Those are very complex situations that we still need to figure out. But for now, we are not controlling the private owners. They can go to the voluntary market with their projects. We are just trying to keep track on what they are doing, but we're not going to tell them, hey, you have to sell inside the domestic market, because that's not the idea. We are trying to renew our regulations so we can figure out what we're going to do with those state lands, those comarca lands, how we're going to approach that, how we're going to facilitate the development of carbon projects, but at the same time protect them, protecting the communities so they receive some positive impacts coming from these projects. So we can achieve climate action, but at the same time we can impact positively in those communities. So that's what we are doing right now. We are working on 2 new legal tools that are looking for creating some processes for this type of projects in this type of lands. So we're going to facilitate that process of developing a project and assuring those people that they are going to receive something positive from it.
Okay, perfect. So your 2.5 minutes, Jose. A few examples of projects. For me, it's still even like, I don't know if I should call it amazing or what, but for countries working with indigenous communities, and when you have to develop a framework in which you that needs to go to the community, are there some examples from the projects that you have been leading that you would like to mention with plantations and examples that can be success, or we can call as a success for the communities, for the country, for the developer, and for the market?
Well, yes, I mean, like successful projects, we have several. One, for example, in the AR area with rubber plantations. Rubber is a native species for Colombia. Rubber comes from the Amazon, to the world. And with these plantations, the latex was very cheap at a moment, and it was very difficult for the reforestators, for the forestry projects from rubber to continue and to thrive. And with the carbon tax and the local market in Colombia, they were able to put more resources to their plantations. They were able to set a new latex transformation plant. So that was a very important achievement for them. They're very grateful with the carbon market, and they're continuing planting more trees, and that's a great example. Another example is the works that we have been doing with the communities in the Pacific region of Colombia. That's a project that we have been developed with Ser Carbono. It's very nice. It's also been selected to offset emissions in the Querétaro carbon tax.
I heard.
Yeah,
very good.
So it's very good. and like an example for these communities was like to build infrastructure in order for the kids to go to school, to plant, make plantations for food supplies for them, and I don't know, have a better Christmas. We got a video from the kids being very grateful from resources from these projects. That these examples of testimonies of the communities are very, very grateful, and I think it's very important to continue supporting these kind of projects that work directly with the communities and that are very transparent. Yeah, we have clients that have visited the region, which is also amazing. The Chocó region is one of is like very thick jungle, and it's beautiful.
Now I want to go. Okay, so we are going to close with Camilo. That it's going to take not the 2.5 minutes, but like 3 minutes that are over there. We've been having over here the AIRA member dialogue. We already had fun in the nightcap. You are preparing the Florence Climate Summit, and then you guys are all over the place. So from your perspective, like where should we focus our efforts in terms of the main challenges and opportunities that the Secretariat of AITA, it's working for its membership to understand where to go. So with that, we're going to close. So Camilo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nathalie. So I would think that something very key right now is how different instruments should interact within the same countries, because we have, for example, the cases of Chile, of Colombia, that they already have a carbon tax and an offsetting mechanism for the carbon tax, but they are also working on the emission trading systems regulation and design. And obviously, plus working on Article 6 regulation. So having like consistency on how those instruments should be working in a coordinated way, that's very important. I think that's one of the main challenges we have right now. For example, in the cases of Mexico, you may think not only in the different or transversal or cross-cutting instruments between carbon tax ETS, but also between the national government or the federal government and the subnational states. And could happen in a similar way in Brazil with the ETS and the initiative that already some subnational states have in Brazil. So that's one challenge we have. Other challenge we have is accompanying the governments in all the regulation that they are creating. We already know that the scrutiny is focused on social and environmental integrity, and governments have been learning as they go, and more countries in the region are starting to create rules to allow for greater control and quality in the development of projects. So we need to be there supporting them. Anna already explained how they are working, and most of the countries are doing this control through the registries. So I think it's key to partner or to accompany this government to help them with the interpretation of safeguards, or I don't know how methodologies should be approved or assessed. For example, and my last comment would say that trying to build some standardized markets, and this to enable higher liquidity, but also consistency throughout the different countries. Because I mean, we have global initiatives as ICROA, ICBC, and BCNI that could help to build this standardization and to ensure integrity in the market in social and in environmental terms. So as I know the time finished, I will leave with that and saying that it's interesting to keep in mind. Some years ago, it would be impossible thinking of Venezuela, Ecuador, and Bolivia working and implementing carbon markets. Right now, that's happening. That would be my last message, and it's pretty interesting to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilo. A round of applause to the people leading the way in Latin America, which is a great region, but also very challenging. And I think you guys are doing great, and I'm very happy we had the chance to share this panel. Thank you to CAR for inviting us, and see you all around.